Here we bring you the full episode of the Hidden System. Stay tuned.
Most systems don't announce themselves. They don't need to. They work best when people believe they are simply living their lives. Everything around you works, but not by accident. The money you earn, the rules you follow, the pressure you feel to keep going, there is a structure beneath it all, unseen, rarely explained, and powerful enough to shape entire lives. In this documentary, we will examine the structure beneath modern society: money, power, control, and compliance. You will learn why the rules feel invisible, why struggle feels personal, and why the same patterns repeat across different countries and generations. This isn't about blame. It's about understanding the machine you're already inside. This is the hidden system. If you want to understand these systems, not emotionally but clearly, then this is the kind of work you'll want to stay connected to. So take a moment to subscribe and turn on notifications, not for constant uploads, but so you don't miss the moments when something important is explained. Episode 1. The system you were born into. You did not choose the world you were born into. You did not choose the rules that shape your life. You did not vote on the systems that decide what success means, how money works, or how much your time is worth. By the time you took your first breath, those decisions had already been made. And for most people, they will never question them. They will live inside a structure they cannot see, following rules they never agreed to, chasing goals that were handed to them as if they were universal truths. This is not because people are weak, it is because the system is quiet. What the system really means. When people hear the word system, they imagine something dramatic, a secret group, a hidden meeting, a villain in the shadows. But the real system is far more ordinary than that. A system is simply a set of rules, incentives, and consequences that shape behavior over time. It tells you what is rewarded, what is punished, and what is considered normal. The system does not need your belief. It only needs your participation, and participation begins early. The first programming. Education. From a young age, you are taught when to sit, when to speak, when to ask permission. You are taught that obedience is maturity, repetition is intelligence, and questioning too much is a problem. This is not an attack on teachers. Most teachers are doing their best inside a structure they did not design. But the structure itself has a purpose. It prepares you for predictability, for schedules, for hierarchy. It teaches you how to function inside systems that already exist, not how to design new ones. By the time you leave school, you may know many things, but you have likely never been taught how money is created, how power flows, or how incentives shape behavior at scale. Those topics come later, if they come at all. Normalizing the track after education comes the track. Get a job, work hard, be reliable. This is presented not as a suggestion, but as adulthood itself. And for many people, this path does provide stability. But stability is not freedom. The system does not collapse if you are comfortable. It only collapses if too many people understand it. So the system offers just enough income, just enough distraction, just enough hope to keep participation high and questioning low. Why most people never see it, here is the most important truth. The system does not feel like control when you are born into it. It feels like life. Fish do not notice water, they notice resistance, and most people never experience resistance strong enough to ask deeper questions. They blame themselves. I didn't work hard enough. I made the wrong choices. I'm just unlucky. But when millions of people across different countries, different cultures, and different backgrounds experience the same pressure, that is not personal failure. That is design. In the next section, we will begin to follow the thread that connects education, work, and money. Because once you understand how value is measured, you begin to understand who the system truly serves. Part 2. Entering the working world. When you finally enter the working world, something subtle happens. Your time begins to be measured. Not in moments, not in meaning, but in hours. You are given a number, an hourly rate, a salary. This number quietly answers a powerful question. What is 1 unit of your life worth to the system? Most people never ask this question out loud, but they feel it. Every morning alarm, every commute, every exhausted evening where tomorrow already feels closer than today. This is not cruelty, it is efficiency. The unseen agreement. There is an agreement you enter without signing. You agree to exchange time for stability. In return, the system agrees to pay you consistently, keep things predictable, and offer the possibility of more someday. That someday is important. It keeps people patient. Raises are coming, promotions are possible, success is ahead. And for some people, this promise is fulfilled. But systems are not built for exceptions. They are built for averages. And the average worker will trade most of their time for just enough security to continue. Productivity versus value. Here is one of the most misunderstood ideas in modern society. Working harder does not automatically mean you are creating more value. Value in the system is not defined by effort. It is defined by scalability, leverage, and replaceability. A person can work tirelessly and remain financially fragile. Another can make a single decision and earn more in 1 hour than others do in a year. This is not about morality, it is about structure. The system rewards positions, not exhaustion. Why time is the perfect currency. Time is the one resource you cannot store. You cannot save it. You cannot borrow it back. That is why it is so effective as a currency. When people are paid in money but spend their time, the system gains what cannot be replenished. And most people don't realize this until years have passed. They look back and say, I was always busy, but I don't know what I was building. Busyness feels productive, but it often prevents reflection. Comfort as control. The system rarely needs force. Comfort is far more reliable. Streaming, food delivery, endless scrolling, constant noise. Distraction softens dissatisfaction. As long as life is manageable, most people will not risk questioning it. The system does not ask you to be happy, only occupied, only compliant enough to keep things running. Quiet realization. At some point, many people feel it. A quiet discomfort, not loud enough to panic, but persistent enough to wonder, is this it? That question is dangerous, because once it appears, it doesn't go away easily. And the system has an answer ready: work more, buy more, distract yourself. But there is another answer, and it begins with understanding how money itself enters the system. In the next section, we will move beyond work and into the heart of the structure: money. Not how you earn it, but how it is created. Because once you understand that, the rest of the system starts to make sense. Part 3. The moment money enters the story. Up to this point, your life has been measured in time. School hours, work hours, commute hours. Money appears as the reward for those hours. But very few people are told where money actually comes from. Most assume money is earned, saved, and redistributed. But in modern economies, that is not the full picture. Money is created, not discovered, not mined, created. And that single fact changes everything. How money is created, simplified. When banks issue loans, they do not hand out existing money. They create new money digitally. This is not a secret. It is how modern banking works. A loan appears as numbers on a screen. Those numbers enter the economy, and immediately they carry an obligation: debt. This means much of the money in circulation was born already owing something. Interest ensures that more money must be paid back than was created in the first place. This is not evil, it is structural, but it creates pressure. Why inflation never really stops? When more money enters the system without a matching increase in real value, prices rise. This is inflation, not a temporary event, not a mistake, a feature. Inflation encourages spending, discourages saving, and quietly erodes purchasing power. This is why wages struggle to keep up, savings feel weaker over time, and stability feels temporary. You are running on a moving surface. Standing still means falling behind. The invisible transfer. Inflation does something subtle. It transfers value from people who earn fixed incomes to those who control assets. From savers to borrowers with leverage, from time-based workers to system-level participants. Most people don't see this transfer because it happens slowly, quietly, year after year, and by the time it becomes obvious, the gap feels impossible to close. Why this feels personal? People internalize systemic outcomes. They say, I should have done better. I made bad decisions. I didn't plan enough. But when millions experience the same struggle simultaneously, it is no longer individual, it is environmental. The system sets the weather. You are told to blame yourself for getting wet. Preparing the turn. Once you understand how money enters the system, a new question appears. Who benefits from this design? Because systems do not exist without beneficiaries. In the next section, we will look at how banks, debt, and long-term obligation shape modern life, and why leaving the system is far more difficult than entering it. Part 4. Debt as a lifelong companion. Debt is often framed as a tool, a way to get ahead, a bridge to opportunity, and in small controlled doses, it can be. But when debt becomes normal, it becomes something else, a companion. Student loans, credit cards, mortgages, car payments. Each one ties future time to past decisions. You are not just paying money. You are committing hours, years, sometimes decades of your life in advance. This makes people careful. Not reckless, not rebellious, careful. Why debt reduces risk. People with obligations take fewer risks. They question less. They leave less. They challenge less. This is not a moral judgment, it is survival. When missing a paycheck has consequences, stability becomes more important than truth. The system does not need to silence people, it simply makes instability expensive. The escape myth. You are often told there is an escape, a single breakthrough, a perfect investment, a viral moment. And for a very small number of people, this happens. But systems are not transformed by exceptions. The escape myth serves a purpose. It keeps people hopeful without changing the structure. If success is framed as rare and dramatic, failure feels personal. But real change is rarely cinematic. It is slow, uncomfortable, and requires understanding before action. What awareness really does, awareness does not remove you from the system. It changes how you move within it. You begin to see incentives, pressure points, and trade-offs. You stop asking, how do I win? And start asking, what is this designed to do? That question alone creates distance, and distance creates choice. A quiet shift. This documentary is not telling you to reject modern life. It is not asking you to abandon society. It is asking you to observe, to notice patterns, to separate structure from self-worth. Because once you understand that many struggles are systemic, shame loses its grip and clarity begins. Closing statement. You were born into a system you did not choose, but you are not powerless within it. Understanding does not guarantee freedom, but ignorance guarantees limitation. This was the foundation. In the next episode, we move deeper into money itself, not as you earn it, but as the system creates it. Because once you follow the money, the system becomes visible. Money is part of almost every decision you make, yet very few people understand how it actually works. In this episode, we're going to break down how money is created, why inflation never really stops, and why working harder often feels like it leads nowhere. If you want to understand the system clearly, not emotionally, not politically, but structurally, then you'll want to stay connected to this series. Subscribe and turn on notifications, not for frequent uploads, but so you don't miss the moments when something fundamental is explained. Now let's continue. Episode 2. Money is not what you think. Part 1. The truth about currency, debt, and control. Money feels familiar. You earn it. You spend it. You worry about it. It is present in almost every major decision you make. Where you live, what you eat, how secure you feel about the future. And yet, for something so central to modern life, most people have never been taught what money actually is. Not in school, not at work, not anywhere formal. You are expected to use it perfectly without ever understanding how it works. That is not accidental. The big misunderstanding. Most people believe money is a neutral tool, a reward for effort, a store of value. But money is not just an object. It is a system of permission. It decides who can act, who must wait, and who has options. When people struggle financially, they assume the problem is personal. But personal effort exists inside a monetary structure. And if you do not understand the structure, you will always feel behind, no matter how hard you work. Money before modern banking. Long before digital banking, money represented something tangible. Gold, silver, physical goods. It was limited by what existed in the real world. But modern money is different. It is not backed by physical scarcity. It is backed by trust and obligation. This shift changed everything. Because once money is no longer tied to something finite, it can be created. The moment money changed. Today, most money does not come from governments printing notes. It comes from banks issuing loans. When a bank approves a loan, it does not hand out money that already exists. It creates new money digitally, numbers appear on a screen, that money enters the economy. At the same moment, a debt is created. Money and debt are born together. This means the system does not simply reward work, it expands through borrowing. Why this matters? If money enters the system through debt, then debt is not a side effect. It is the engine. Entire economies depend on continued borrowing, continued spending, continued growth. If borrowing slows, the system tightens. Jobs disappear. Markets shake. Fear increases. So the system encourages participation, not understanding. The quiet shift in power. When money is created through lending, those who control lending shape the flow of opportunity. They don't need to control people directly. They control access. Access to capital. Access to time. Access to risk. And most people never notice this shift because money still feels normal. But normal does not mean neutral. In the next section, we will look at inflation. Not as a mystery, not as a temporary problem, but as a predictable outcome of how money is created. Because once you understand inflation, you begin to understand why working harder often feels pointless. Part 2, inflation is not an accident. Inflation is often described as a problem, a temporary disturbance, a mistake that needs fixing. But inflation is not random. It is the natural outcome of a system where money is constantly being created. When more money enters circulation without a matching increase in real goods and services, prices rise. This is not corruption, it is mathematics. Why inflation feels invisible? Inflation rarely announces itself. It doesn't arrive all at once. It moves quietly. A little more for food, a little more for rent, a little less left over each month. Because it happens gradually, people adapt. They cut small comforts. They work extra hours. They blame poor budgeting. By the time inflation is undeniable, the damage is already done. Purchasing power and time. Inflation does something subtle but powerful. It steals from the future. The money you save today buys less tomorrow. The hours you worked last year are worth less this year. This means time itself is quietly devalued. You are not just chasing prices. You are racing against a system that slowly erodes what you've earned. Why wages can't keep up. Wages move slowly. They depend on negotiations, budgets, approval, and competition. Prices, on the other hand, adjust instantly. This creates a permanent gap. Even when wages increase, they are often catching up to a past reality. This is why raises feel unsatisfying. You are celebrating progress that already expired. Who benefits from inflation? Inflation does not affect everyone equally. People with assets, leverage, and access to credit often benefit. Debt becomes easier to repay. Asset prices rise. Ownership compounds. People who rely only on wages absorb the pressure. Same effort, higher cost, less security. This is not unfairness by intent. It is inequality by design. The psychological effect. Inflation doesn't just change numbers. It changes behavior. It creates urgency. anxiety, short-term thinking. When the future feels unstable, people spend, not plan. And a system that depends on spending encourages that response. In the next section, we will explore why, despite working longer hours and gaining more skills, many people feel poor. Because effort alone is no match for a structure designed around debt and inflation. Part 3, the promise of hard work. Most people were taught a simple equation. Work harder leads to earn more leads to live better. For a long time, this felt true. Productivity increased, wages rose, stability felt reachable. But over time, the equation changed, quietly, without announcement. Productivity kept rising. Technology made workers faster. Machines replaced muscle. Software replaced repetition. Automation removed limits. Workers today produce more value per hour than any generation before them. And yet, that value does not return to workers in the same way. This is not laziness. It is not lack of skill. It is redistribution. Where the extra value goes when productivity increases, someone benefits. But it is not automatically the person doing the work. The value flows toward ownership, capital, and scale. If you own the system, productivity multiplies your wealth. If you sell time, productivity increases your output, not your control. This is the difference between effort and leverage. Why work feels heavier if you are producing more, but receiving proportionally less. The system compensates. It increases pressure, longer hours, higher expectations, less security. Burnout becomes normal. Exhaustion becomes a badge of honor. People don't feel poor because they lack money. They feel poor because their effort no longer translates into progress. The shift from security to survival. In previous generations, work promised stability. Today, it promises maintenance. You work to stay in place, miss a paycheck, and consequences appear quickly. This creates fear-based loyalty, not to employers, but to income itself. A silent conclusion. When people say, "I work harder than ever and still feel behind," they are not complaining. They are describing reality, a system where effort is expected, but leverage is rewarded. In the final section, we will connect money, debt, and control, and explain why this structure persists. Because systems like this do not survive by accident. They survive because they are stable, predictable, and profitable for those at the top. Part 4. Money as a tool of direction. Money does more than facilitate trade. It directs behavior. When access to money determines housing, healthcare, education, and security, people adjust their lives around staying financially acceptable. This does not require force. It only requires dependence, and dependence is quietly encouraged. Debt as the expansion mechanism. Debt keeps money moving. It pulls future labor into the present. Student loans shape careers. Mortgages shape mobility. Credit shapes consumption. Each decision narrows options, not immediately, gradually. The system does not restrict choice outright. It makes alternatives expensive. Why this system persists? This monetary structure continues because it is stable. It fuels growth, rewards, ownership discourages disruption. Even during crises, the system is preserved. Losses are socialized. Gains are protected. This is not ideology, it is pattern. The cost of not understanding. Without understanding money, people misinterpret outcomes. They blame motivation, discipline, intelligence instead of structure. This creates shame, and shame is powerful. It keeps people focused inward instead of upward. A different question. The important question is not, how do I get rich? It is, what is this system designed to reward? Once you understand the answer, your decisions change, not emotionally, strategically. Money is not what you think. It is not just currency. It is not just reward. It is a system of incentives that shapes behavior at scale. In the next episode, we will move deeper into banks, debt, and long-term obligation. Because once money is created, it must be controlled. And that control has consequences. If this episode changed the way you think about money, it's because understanding creates distance. Distance from shame, distance from confusion, distance from blaming yourself for outcomes that are often structural. This series is about seeing the system clearly, step by step. If you want to continue that journey, subscribe and turn on notifications. The next episode explores banks, debt, and long-term obligation, and how control works quietly over time. Because once money is created, it has to be managed. And that management shapes entire lives. I'll see you in the next episode. Episode 3. Money does not control people directly. Banks don't need force. Debt doesn't need threats. Control works best when it feels like responsibility, when obligation is framed as maturity, when long-term dependence is called stability. In this episode, we're going to look at the quiet mechanics behind modern banking and debt. Not the dramatic version, not the conspiracy version, the everyday version, the kind that slowly narrows options, shapes decisions, and keeps entire populations compliant, without anyone ever feeling imprisoned. This is Banks, Debt, and Silent Slavery. Let's begin. Part 1. Banks as gatekeepers. What banks really do? Banks are often described as safe places for money, neutral service providers, financial helpers. But structurally, banks are gatekeepers. They decide who gets access to capital, under what conditions, and at what cost. They don't just store money, they filter opportunity. Banks as invisible gatekeepers. The common perception of banks: most people interact with banks in small, ordinary ways. Deposits, withdrawals, transfers, payments. From this perspective, banks appear neutral, almost boring. They feel like utilities, but this surface-level interaction hides their actual function. Banks do not simply move money, they decide where money is allowed to go. Money does not enter the economy. Neutrally, new money does not appear evenly. It enters through specific channels, primarily through loans. This means banks are not just intermediaries, they are points of entry. Who receives credit first shapes who grows first. Who waits falls behind. This initial positioning creates long-term inequality without requiring favoritism. Access is more powerful than intelligence. In theory, success is linked to merit. In practice, it is linked to access. Two individuals can have the same intelligence, the same work ethic, the same ambition, but only one may qualify for credit. That person can start earlier, absorb losses, scale faster. This advantage compounds, not because they are better, but because the system allowed them to move first. Credit as a filter, not a reward. Credit is often framed as something you earn. In reality, it is something you are evaluated for. Banks assess predictability, compliance, stability. Creativity is irrelevant. Potential is secondary. The system rewards those who already fit within it. Risk is reassigned, not eliminated. Banks are described as risk managers, but risk rarely disappears. It is transferred. Collateral shifts risk to borrowers. Interest compensates uncertainty. Public guarantees protect institutions. When failure occurs, losses are distributed outward. When success occurs, gains concentrate inward. This pattern is consistent. Why this power remains invisible? Banks rarely speak publicly about control. They don't need to. Their influence operates quietly, through approval forms, credit scores, and eligibility criteria. No speeches, no announcements. Just doors opening or remaining closed. The psychological effect. When opportunity requires permission, people internalize limitation. They adjust goals to match what feels attainable. Over time, this feels like choice. But it began as filtering. Once access is granted, the system doesn't loosen. It tightens, because access comes with conditions. Those conditions are called debt. Part 2, debt as behavior. Controlled debt doesn't just take money, it takes flexibility. People with high obligations change jobs less, speak out less, take fewer risks, not because they lack courage, but because consequences are higher. Long-term obligation, modern debt isn't short-term, it's 10 years, 20 years, 30 years. This locks future behavior to past agreements. The system doesn't need to control thought. It controls timelines. Why debt is normalized? Debt is framed as smart, responsible, unavoidable. And in many cases, it is necessary. But normalization removes scrutiny. When everyone is obligated, no one questions the structure. Debt alone isn't enough. It must be maintained. That's where compliance enters. Debt is long-term behavioral control. Debt is not a moment. It is a timeline. Debt is often spoken about as a temporary condition, a phase, a bridge, something you get through. But modern debt is not brief. It stretches across decades, life stages, identities. A 30-year mortgage does more than purchase a house. It defines where you live, how long you stay, and how much risk you can afford to take. Debt doesn't just affect money, it organizes time. Future labor, committed in advance. When debt is created, future labor is pre-sold. You are not only agreeing to pay money, you are agreeing to remain employable, remain compliant, remain predictable. The system doesn't need to tell you what job to take. Debt narrows the list automatically. Why debt changes personality? Debt creates pressure long before payment is missed. People with high obligations avoid uncertainty, delay confrontation, suppress dissent. Not because they are weak, but because consequences are magnified. Risk stops feeling adventurous. It feels irresponsible. Debt and identity over time. Debt stops feeling external. It becomes identity shaping. I can't leave this job. I can't move right now. I can't afford to speak up. These statements sound personal, but they are structural. Why long-term debt is stable from a system perspective. Long-term debt is ideal. It locks behavior, stabilizes consumption, predicts future income streams. Short-term debt creates urgency. Long-term debt creates compliance. Normalization is control. Debt is no longer questioned, it is expected. Education, debt, housing, debt, healthcare, debt. When obligation becomes universal, resistance disappears. People stop asking whether the structure is reasonable. They ask how to survive within it. Moralizing debt is framed morally. Paying it is responsible. Escaping it is suspicious. This framing shifts blame. Structural pressure becomes personal failure, and shame is an effective silencer. Interest as time extraction. Interest is not just cost. It is time extracted slowly. You pay not only for what you borrowed, but for the years it keeps you obligated. This ensures the relationship lasts far longer than the original need. The quiet trade-off. Debt trades freedom for predictability, and predictability is valuable to employers, lenders, and systems. Once traded, freedom becomes expensive to reclaim. Debt alone does not enforce obedience, it creates vulnerability. The next layer turns vulnerability into self-regulation. That layer is compliance. Part 3, compliance without force. Why force is unnecessary. The most stable systems don't rely on violence. They rely on incentives. Miss a payment, you feel it immediately. Challenge the system, your safety net weakens. This teaches caution. Stability over truth. People don't stop questioning because they don't care. They stop because children depend on them, rent is due, health insurance is tied to work. Stability becomes more valuable than honesty. Compliance without coercion. Why force is unnecessary? Force is inefficient. It creates resistance. It invites rebellion. It requires constant energy. Stable systems don't rely on force. They rely on incentives. Debt creates consequences that operate automatically. No threats are needed. No authority has to speak. The structure enforces itself. Self-regulation is more effective than policing. When people are indebted, they monitor themselves. They ask, is this safe? What if this fails? What could I lose? These questions don't come from fear of punishment. They come from fear of instability. And instability has been framed as personal failure. Stability becomes the highest value. As obligations grow, stability becomes sacred. Not growth, not truth, not freedom. Stability. People accept unfulfilling work, unfair conditions, limited futures. Because stability protects dependents, not just individuals. Compliance is framed as maturity. Compliance is not presented as submission. It is framed as adulthood, being responsible, being realistic, knowing how the world works. Questioning the structure is labeled naive. Acceptance is labeled wisdom. The silent contract. There is an unspoken agreement. If you behave predictably, pay on time, don't disrupt, stay productive. The system will allow you to remain stable, not comfortable, not free, stable. Why protest feels risky? People often ask why more don't resist. Resistance threatens income, credit, reputation, future opportunity. Debt ensures consequences are personal, not collective. This isolates risk. Isolation neutralizes movements. No single oppressor. This system doesn't require a villain. No one needs to issue commands. Responsibility is internalized. People blame themselves for pressures that were designed. Silent slavery clarified. This is not slavery of force. It is slavery of constraints. You are free as long as your freedom does not interfere with repayment. At this stage, the question changes. It's no longer who is in control. It becomes why is escape so rare? Part 4, why escape is rare. The escape story. People are told most systems survive by offering a story of escape. Work harder, learn more, invest wisely, start something. And for a small number of people, this works. These exceptions are highlighted, not to free the many, but to justify the structure. Why most people can't leave escape is not only about effort. It requires spare time, spare capital tolerance for uncertainty. Debt removes all three. Every obligation narrows the margin for error. Risk stops being strategic. It becomes dangerous. The timing problem. Even correct decisions can fail if timed poorly. Debt punishes poor timing harshly. This makes experimentation rare. Stability is chosen not because it's optimal, but because it's survivable. Systems. Adapt, not collapse. When pressure builds, systems respond. Relief programs appear. Rules are adjusted. Language changes, but control remains. Change is permitted as long as predictability is preserved. Awareness is not escape. Understanding this system does not free you overnight. Awareness is not rebellion, it is orientation. You begin to see why choices feel limited, why pressure feels constant, why effort doesn't always translate. This clarity reduces shame, and shame is one of the system's most effective tools. The real first step. Escape is not a single action. It begins with asking different questions, not, how do I win? But what does this system reward? Once you know that, you move differently, more deliberately, more selectively. Banks do not need to dominate. Debt does not need to threaten. Control works best when it feels voluntary. When people believe they are choosing freely, the system no longer needs to convince them. In the next episode, we will examine the illusion of choice in politics, media, and modern freedom. Because once choice itself is managed, control becomes complete. I'll see you in the next episode. Now, you're lucky to come across this in your lifetime. Most people believe they are free because they are allowed to choose. Choose who to vote for. Choose what to watch. Choose what to buy. Choose what to believe. Freedom, we are told, is the presence of options. But this episode asks a quieter question. Who designs the options? Because when choices are pre-selected, freedom becomes a feeling, not a condition. This is not about dictatorships or obvious censorship. This is about modern systems that allow expression, encourage participation, and still guide outcomes with remarkable consistency. This is The Illusion of Choice. Episode 4, The Illusion of Choice, Politics, Media, and Modern Freedom. Part 1, choice as a control mechanism. Why choice feels like freedom. Choice feels empowering. It creates ownership. When people choose, they feel responsible for outcomes. This emotional ownership is critical because systems that rely on choice don't need obedience. They need buy-in. The difference between range and direction, having options does not mean having freedom. If all available paths lead in roughly the same direction, choice becomes cosmetic. Different routes, same destination. This is how control modernizes. Politics is managed variation. In many political systems, competition exists. Debates are loud. Personalities clash. Language differs. But foundational structures remain untouched. Economic models persist. Banking systems remain unchanged. Foreign policy stays predictable. What changes is tone, not trajectory. Why conflict is encouraged, division is useful? It creates engagement without threatening structure. People argue horizontally, party against party, group against group, rarely vertically toward systems themselves. Conflict absorbs attention, and attention is finite. Participation as legitimacy. Voting creates legitimacy, not because outcomes change dramatically, but because participation implies consent. Once people engage, the system is validated, even when dissatisfaction remains. This is not deception, it is psychology. Media and the shape of possibility. Media doesn't tell people what to think. It tells them what is thinkable, which topics are serious, which are fringe, which questions are acceptable. The boundaries are subtle, but they are firm. The invisible fence. Most people never encounter censorship, they encounter omission. Certain ideas are never presented as viable, and what is never presented rarely feels missing. Once choice is framed and boundaries are set, the next step is reinforcement, because belief must be maintained. That reinforcement comes through repetition. Part 2, Media, Narratives, and Repetition. Why repetition matters more than censorship. Modern control rarely silences ideas. It outnumbers them. An idea does not disappear because it is banned. It disappears because it is drowned. When certain narratives are repeated across platforms, across formats, across voices, they begin to feel natural. Not because they are true, but because they are familiar. How consensus is manufactured. Consensus does not require agreement. It requires saturation. When the same assumptions appear, in news and entertainment, in advertising and expert commentary, they stop feeling like opinions. They become background reality. This is how beliefs are stabilized without enforcement. The role of experts. Experts provide legitimacy, not necessarily accuracy. Legitimacy. When authority figures repeat similar frameworks, debate becomes limited to minor disagreements. The core assumptions remain untouched. This creates the appearance of diversity within controlled boundaries. Speed as a control tool. Modern media moves fast. Stories change daily. Outrage cycles reset constantly. This speed prevents depth. Before questions can mature, attention is redirected. What cannot be examined cannot be challenged. Emotion over analysis. Media prioritizes emotion. Fear, anger, moral urgency. Emotional reactions bypass reflection. They keep people responsive, but not reflective. A responsive audience is easy to steer. A reflective audience is not. Simplicity wins. Complex explanations require patience. Simple narratives spread faster. Good versus bad. Us versus them. Crisis versus solution. Systems prefer simplicity because it prevents structural questioning. The illusion of independent thinking. People believe they arrive at conclusions independently, but conclusions are shaped by available inputs. If all roads lead through the same information corridors, independent thinking still converges. Freedom of thought requires freedom of context. Why alternative voices struggle. Alternative perspectives are not always suppressed. They are labeled extreme, unserious, unreliable. This framing discourages engagement without banning access. People avoid ideas that risk social cost. Normalization through entertainment. Entertainment plays a quiet role. Values are modeled, Lifestyles are normalized. Outcomes are justified. When narratives are absorbed passively, they bypass skepticism. Entertainment teaches without appearing to instruct. Once narratives are repeated and beliefs stabilize, the final layer emerges. People begin to defend the choices they were given. This is where illusion becomes identity. Part 3. Identity, choice, and self-defense. How choice becomes personal. Once options are framed, boundaries are set, and narratives are repeated, people begin to identify with their choices. Political preferences, media consumption, lifestyle selections. These choices feel personal, like authentic expressions of self, but they are guided by the structures they operate within. Defending the illusion. Humans naturally defend their sense of autonomy. When someone questions a system of managed options, people often react defensively. I chose freely. I make my own decisions. I know better than others. This is self-reinforcement. Even when the system is restrictive, defenders perceive it as validating freedom. The role of social pressure. Identity is reinforced socially. Choices are discussed publicly. Opinions are shared online. Tribes are formed. Deviation threatens belonging. The fear of social cost ensures compliance without explicit rules. Participation as consent voting. Consumer decisions. Media engagement. Every act of participation signals agreement with the boundaries of choice, not necessarily with outcomes, not necessarily with intent, but the system interprets engagement as consent. Self-policing becomes natural. Once internalized, people monitor themselves. They avoid exploring unthinkable alternatives. They defend familiar narratives. They prioritize belonging over curiosity. Control no longer requires enforcement. It has been absorbed. Why this system is stable? Systems that allow participation but restrict meaningful alternatives are exceptionally stable. People defend constraints voluntarily. They explain limitations as personal preference. They rationalize boundaries as freedom. Resistance exists, but is rare, isolated, and framed as anomaly. At this point, the system is largely complete. Options exist. Narratives guide interpretation. People internalize rules. Participation validates the structure. The final question emerges. Why does it feel impossible to step outside entirely? Part 4. Why true freedom is rare. Even with options, awareness, and participation, true freedom is difficult to achieve. Because freedom is not just the ability to choose. It is the ability to act without invisible constraints. Invisible fences exist everywhere. Economic pressures, social expectations, normalized narratives, structural boundaries. All are subtle. All are effective. People rarely see them, and those who do often underestimate their weight. Choice is illusion. Choice remains real, technically, but the trajectory of consequences is constrained. Jobs, education, media, politics, social mobility, all remain within acceptable parameters. The system allows participation, but limits transformation. You may feel empowered, but empowerment is framed. The system protects itself. The most stable systems do not ban questioning. They channel it. Debate is allowed on details. Disagreement is tolerated within boundaries. Criticism is absorbed, neutralized, or redirected. When people feel responsible for their choices, they defend boundaries. They reinforce limitations. They normalize constraint. Control has become internalized. The real first step. Episode 4 is not about despair. It is about clarity. Understanding this system does not give instant freedom. It provides perspective. Why certain options feel natural. Why deviation feels risky. Why participation reinforces constraint. Awareness allows deliberate navigation even within boundaries. The illusion of choice is subtle. It feels empowering. It feels personal. It feels free. But it is guided, contained, managed. In the next episode, we will explore how systems of money, debt, and choice intersect with global politics, and why understanding these connections is essential for anyone seeking genuine agency. Remember, freedom begins with seeing clearly. See clearly, and you move differently. I'll see you in episode 5. experience feels complex, confusing, disjointed. Yet beneath the noise, patterns exist. Banks, debt, and freedom of choice are pieces of a much larger structure. A global system quietly shapes politics, media, and the economy in ways few notice and even fewer question. In this episode, we will explore how money influences policy before it is even spent, why global debt is a tool of control, how international banking and politics intersect, why major decisions affecting daily life happen far from public view. This is not a conspiracy theory, it is structural observation. By the end of 2 hours, you will see the world differently. Episode 5: Money, Power, and the Global System. How influence shapes the world. You see, money is more than currency. It is a language, a code for power, influence, and control. When the U.S. Federal Reserve adjusts interest rates, or when the Bank of England announces policy changes, the effects ripple globally. Investors move trillions across markets. Currencies gain or lose value. Governments adjust spending priorities. Even people in Ghana, India, or Nigeria experience these decisions indirectly through inflation, exchange rates, and commodity prices. The lesson: money is not just what you hold, it is the invisible architecture of influence. Money as a global language. Money is universal, but power is local. Currency flows across borders, but influence flows through networks. Central banks, governments, international institutions. Few understand how decisions in London or Washington ripple to New York, Lagos, or Beijing. Central banks and political leverage. Central banks like the Federal Reserve, US, and Bank of England, UK, are not neutral. They control interest rates, influence inflation, decide who receives liquidity. These decisions determine who prospers and who struggles. Long before anyone votes, invests, or spends, money is more than currency. It is a language, a code for power, influence, and control. When the U.S. Federal Reserve adjusts interest rates, or when the Bank of England announces policy changes, the effects ripple globally. Investors move trillions across markets. Currencies gain or lose value. Governments adjust spending priorities. Even people in Ghana, India, or Nigeria experience these decisions indirectly through inflation, exchange rates, and commodity prices. The lesson: money is not just what you hold, it is the invisible architecture of influence. Central banks appear technical and neutral, but their power is deeply political. Interest rates affects mortgages, loans, and business investments. Quantitative easing injects money into the system, which can favor certain sectors or countries. Bank bailouts protects institutions deemed too big to fail, often at the expense of taxpayers. The Fed and the Bank of England shape your home loan rates, credit card interest, and government debt costs. These institutions influence not just economics, but political choices, because governments act within the constraints set by these policies. It's subtle, quiet, invisible. Most people never realize the extent of that influence. Debt as geopolitical leverage. Countries owe trillions. Debt is not just numbers, it is leverage. If country A lends to country B, it gains influence over policies, trade, and political alignment. Debt crises are often less about repayment and more about compliance with external agendas. Debt is not neutral, it is negotiation power, often international. Consider this. When the U.S. lends money to other countries, it creates leverage over trade agreements, policy alignment, and even military decisions. The UK has long used financial influence to secure favorable trade networks globally. Debt is not merely borrowing money, it is a contract for future compliance. When countries face debt crises, the world watches, but few see that these crises are designed to enforce rules quietly, without war or overt coercion. Corporate and financial networks, banks, multinational corporations, and government agencies interact through complex agreements. Contracts, derivatives, and hidden investments ensure that power consolidates even without anyone noticing. The global financial system is more like a network than a hierarchy. Major banks hold shares in multiple corporations, Multinationals rely on credit lines tied to central banks. Governments negotiate treaties influenced by financial dependencies. Even seemingly independent companies are often interlinked. Energy, pharmaceuticals, tech, and finance all cross-connect. A single regulatory or market shift in London or Washington can impact companies worldwide. Policy decisions in your country are rarely isolated. They are influenced by these global networks. Decisions about taxation, interest, infrastructure, and trade are shaped long before public debate begins. Policy decisions you experience daily, taxes, housing, healthcare, interest rates, are often outcomes of global negotiations and banking networks. If you live in the US or UK, this system touches your daily life more than you realize. Your mortgage rates reflect Fed or Bank of England decisions. Inflation on food and energy reflects global liquidity and debt flows. Political promises are constrained by international lending and banking agreements. The freedom to spend, earn, or invest exists, but within invisible boundaries dictated by a global financial system most people never study. Part 2. Political influence, media, and financial policy. The intersection of money and politics. Money and politics are often treated as separate in public discussion. In reality, they are deeply intertwined. Political campaigns rely on funding from banks, corporations, and special interests. Policy proposals are frequently influenced by lenders or financial institutions who hold leverage over governments. Legislative decisions on taxes, subsidies, or regulations are subtly shaped by global capital flows. When Congress or Parliament debates budgetary priorities, the choices are rarely purely ideological. They are constrained by the financial realities and debt obligations established by both domestic and international actors. In other words, money doesn't just fund politics, it channels it. Media as a shaper of perception. Media does not simply report reality, it frames it. Stories are selected, edited, and repeated to create consensus. Certain topics are emphasized, others are downplayed or ignored. Repetition normalizes assumptions and shapes public perception. Economic policies often appear inevitable because media coverage frames them as technical necessities rather than political choices. Global financial crises are often presented as unexpected disasters, ignoring long-term policy decisions or structural causes. Media isn't just information, it is guidance on what to perceive as normal, urgent, or important. Financial policy is invisible control. Financial policy is the mechanism linking Part 1 and Part 2. Interest rates influence consumer behavior. Quantitative easing injects liquidity that affects markets and asset prices. Taxation and government borrowing create incentives and constraints for corporations and citizens alike. In the US, the Federal Reserve may adjust rates to stabilize employment or inflation, but the ripple effects influence every mortgage, credit card, and savings account. In the UK, Bank of England policies affect housing affordability, pension returns, and national debt sustainability. These policies shape behavior long before anyone is aware, steering choices that feel free but are guided by systemic design. Global influence on domestic policy. Domestic politics is never fully domestic. Agreements between countries, trade negotiations, and global banking rules affect local governance. International bodies like the IMF, World Bank, and BIS often establish conditions for loans or support that limit national autonomy. Even when local leaders make decisions, the available options are framed by these external financial constraints. For example, infrastructure projects, healthcare funding, or social programs may be prioritized based on international debt requirements rather than local needs. Policy freedom exists within a corridor defined by global financial realities. The illusion of debate. Public political debates create the appearance of meaningful choice, but outcomes are often similar. Two parties may propose different solutions, but both maintain the same underlying structures. Structural decisions on banking, taxation, and trade remain largely untouched. The goal is engagement, not disruption. The system allows disagreement within boundaries that never threaten its core. I know by now, you must be asking yourselves these questions. Who really frames the policy options available in my country? How do global financial networks indirectly decide local laws and social programs? Why do political debates often feel repetitive, predictable, or disconnected from reality? Let's see about that in the next section. Part 3. Identity, culture, and self-perpetuating systems. How structure becomes personal. By now, the framework is clear. Money flows globally. Politics is subtly influenced. Media frames perception. But systems are most stable when people internalize their rules. What does this look like? Citizens defend policies that limit their own choices. Individuals rationalize inequality as normal or deserved. Collective habits like spending, voting, or consuming support the system without conscious awareness. Your career, education, lifestyle, and even entertainment choices are shaped by structural pressures far before you consciously act. Part 4. Global manipulation, propaganda, and financial survival. The quiet force of propaganda. Modern propaganda is rarely overt. It is subtle, pervasive, and often unrecognized. Policy messaging shapes perception before decisions are made. Media cycles repeat narratives that influence public opinion subtly. Social media algorithms amplify certain stories while suppressing others. Economic crises are framed as technical necessities rather than policy outcomes. Political messaging is tailored to encourage participation within predefined boundaries. Public consensus is manufactured through repetition, emotion, and selective emphasis. The average person believes they are reacting freely. In reality, reactions are guided by carefully managed information flows. Financial survival as a systemic trap. Global financial systems are built to reward compliance and penalize deviation. Credit dependency ensures individuals follow predictable paths. Loans, mortgages, and interest rates shape life choices decades in advance. Government subsidies, taxation, and policy incentives encourage participation in ways that benefit systemic stability. Even when people attempt alternative strategies, the system adapts. Interest rate changes penalize riskier investments. Market fluctuations disproportionately affect those with less capital. Economic narratives justify the outcomes and maintain perception of fairness. International financial intervention. Countries are also subject to subtle external influence. International institutions like the IMF or World Bank provide loans with conditions attached, affecting domestic policy. Bilateral lending arrangements create dependency networks. Global trade agreements often dictate economic priorities, leaving local governments with limited flexibility. Even when your government appears sovereign, global networks influence decisions on trade, regulation, and debt management. Policy freedom is often constrained by unseen international obligations. Media amplification of financial decisions. Media plays a critical role in stabilizing these systems. Crises are framed as emergencies requiring immediate, narrow solutions. Success stories of elite financial actors are celebrated while systemic flaws are obscured. Public attention is directed toward personalities and events rather than structural analysis. This ensures engagement without challenging the system itself. How culture and psychology interact with global systems. Social pressure, identity, and cultural reinforcement shape compliance. Media, entertainment, and education normalize systemic structures. Awareness alone rarely leads to systemic change. Patterns are repeated generation to generation. Result, self-policing populations that defend the very systems limiting their choices. Resistance, adaptation, and navigating the system. Understanding the limits of control. The first step to resistance is clarity. Recognize that systems are designed for compliance, not malice. Understand how global money, policy, and media shape choices. Observe patterns before acting. Impulsive rebellion often leads to failure. Everyday decisions, from where you invest to what you consume, are influenced by structures that reward predictability. Awareness of these patterns is the foundation for meaningful adaptation. Individual strategies for navigation. Even within constrained systems, some strategies allow greater agency. Diversification of income and resources. Multiple income streams reduce dependency on single financial structures. Knowledge of global markets allows better timing and decision-making. Consume media critically, recognizing framing and omissions. Compare domestic narratives with international perspectives to uncover biases. Debt management as power. Understand the terms and structures of loans. Use debt strategically, not as a trap. Cultural and social awareness. Identify norms that reinforce compliance. Build networks that encourage questioning and resilience. Collective strategies. Systems are easier to navigate when people act collectively. Community initiatives, co-ops, and decentralized networks reduce exposure to centralized control. Shared knowledge about financial literacy, policy, and global influence empowers groups. Historical examples show that coordinated adaptation can shift systemic pressure without overt conflict. Global examples of adaptation. Financial innovation, alternative banking, blockchain, and decentralized finance, DeFi, provide new routes for capital outside traditional networks. Policy influence movements. Grassroots lobbying and informed civic participation in the US and UK have shaped economic and social policies, even within constrained systems. Media literacy campaigns. Public initiatives to improve critical thinking reduce susceptibility to repeated narrative. Over the past minutes, we've explored how money flows globally and shapes local economies, how political systems are influenced by finance and media, how culture and identity make people self-policing participants in the system, how propaganda, narratives, and repetition stabilize global influence, how resistance and adaptation are possible but carefully calibrated. The pattern is clear. The system is deeply interconnected, but not invincible. Understanding it is not just knowledge, it is power. Why the system persists? It rewards compliance and punishes deviation subtly. It internalizes control through culture, media, and identity. It allows participation to appear voluntary while guiding outcomes. Your economy, your political choices, and your media consumption are all subtly influenced by this architecture. Most people never see the invisible currents shaping their lives, which is why the system persists, quietly, effectively, and often unnoticed. The duality of freedom. True freedom is rare, but not impossible. It requires awareness, patience, and strategy. It requires understanding the rules of the system before attempting to step outside it. Incremental adaptation, both individually and collectively, can shift personal and societal trajectories. The key, freedom exists in understanding the invisible forces and acting deliberately within. Awareness is empowerment. Understanding global flows, debt leverage, and media framing reveals the hidden system. Participation can be strategic. Engage selectively to gain insight or leverage, not just habit. Collective intelligence matters. Knowledge shared in communities amplifies agency. Agency is a skill. Freedom is earned incrementally through awareness, risk management, and informed choice.